And welcome to the Crit Hit Wild podcast, where we cover all things Marvel Crisis Protocol, and we cover a new character every week. This week, we're doing the Spectacular Spider-Man, and I'm your host, Fred.
I'm Brad.
And I'm Justy.
Hello, Justy. How's it going there, man?
It's going good, Fred. Thank you guys for having me on. I'm really excited to get to talk to you about Spider-Man today and just catch up with you guys. It's been a while.
It has been a while. For those of you who don't remember, Justy was the host of our sister podcast, the Journey Through Limbo podcast. And he's back, y'all. He's here to talk about Spectacular Spider-Man.
It should be a spectacular episode.
I'm hoping that it will be. So Steven is in an area where he will not have cell reception. So unfortunately, he won't be joining us. And also, Brandon is AWOL. He's absent without leave. So he may join us mid-record. We'll see. We'll see. But we've got Justy here to fill in, and he is here. Hey, how long has it been? Has it been more than a year? I think it has been.
It's been like a year and a half since I did an episode of Journey Through Limbo. It's been a while.
Oh my.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been quite a while. I've played some games since then, but unfortunately my gaming schedule has taken a little bit of a hit, which is why I took a step back from the podcast. My co-host Brian actually moved away to Boston too, so it kind of made it difficult where I wasn't getting to play games, he wasn't here, and he wasn't getting to play games. So we kind of had to we put it on pause to start with, and it's been a much longer pause than we expected. But I have played some games, and just not as often as I used to. It used to be a weekly thing, and now it's more of a whenever I get to type of thing. But
Well, I completely understand that. That's what getting older means. That's what happens
yeah,
when, yeah. I think before the pod, you said that is just a function of being in our 30s.
that's what I've come to learn. It's that 30-year-old hump really sucks. If I can recommend to our under 30 listeners, just don't turn 30. Just don't go past your 29th birthday. Just never have a birthday after that. So.
Yeah, can confirm. Can confirm. But it is real good to have you back, and I want you to know that you will be welcome here anytime you want to talk about a character. Anytime there's a specific character you want to talk about. Uh, we were talking a bit before the pod, and with your reduced schedule, with your schedule where you don't get to play nearly as often, how has that affected your list decision making?
Yeah, so I've always been the type of guy that wants to play the characters that I want to play, which is kind of why we started Journey Through Limbo. We knew that people were passionate about characters that they loved, but also we took a little bit of a competitive twist with it in the fact that we were trying to maximize lists um, based on lists that people wanted to play, right? So we were trying to maximize some decisions, whatever, and in my um, I've had to shift that a little bit just in my lack of getting to play every week these days. I've shifted to where it's like, well, when I get to play, I really want to play certain characters, just certain characters that I love. And it's less about, it has nothing to do with the stat card. It's really just truly the comic book character because I'm a comic book fan first and foremost, which is why I came to love this game to begin with. And so I mean, like you guys know, I'm a big mutant fan. So with the recent change to Miss Marvel in Marvel Comics becoming a mutant, like a lot of my lists are revolved around playing her with the X-Men and putting her in lists and things like that. And I I am starting a new podcast project based on Spider-Man comics. So Spider-Man has taken a recent uptick in my gameplay um, because I enjoy playing characters that I'm talking about and thinking about. So, which is also why I'm very excited about this today to talk about Spectacular Spider-Man. But it's really interesting because like the even with my want to play characters, sometimes I happen upon the competitive side of my brain just can't also just automatically shut off, right? So I did accidentally build a like crazy dumb list the other day, just trying to build a Miss Marvel Avengers list, and it ended up being way more gross than I thought. Um, and but anyway, that's just yeah, I've had to shift gears, and it's interesting to see. Sometimes those lists are great, sometimes they're just themey and not so great, but it's a good time.
All right. I gotta say, there are a couple things that I want to unpack in that
Let's
statement.
do it.
Yeah. Let's go back in reverse order in my memory.
Okay,
So, do you want to talk about that Avengers list? I mean,
I
we
do.
we may
I
not
really
get a
do. I actually,
chance. Yeah, let's talk about it.
yeah.
What was in that Avengers list?
So it is a Sam Wilson list, but it's not Sam spam, right? So it's not like that style of list. It's a so he is the leader, and then the goal is to play Miss Marvel every time, right? Like that's kind of my goal.
Okay.
So I the second character that I put in the list. Well, I also built it around the release point of Gwenpool and Squirrel Girl, right? So I was like, well, I want to maximize these two and just play, not maximize them, but play them in the same list. So it's like, okay, well, I want this Miss Marvel list. I also want to play Gwenpool and Squirrel Girl. What's the best way to do this? Well, it's easy to play Steve, right? Um, so I immediately put him in the list, and I was like, that's kind of boring. I don't know. Let me put Sam in the list and just see how it goes. So I immediately made it a 2 liter list with Sam and Steve. Old Steve. This was previous before we got this newfangled Steve, right? Um, so after that, it was like, okay, well, Black Widow goes in the list because it's an N affiliation 2 point character, and it's like, well, what else is like weird about Avengers that I want to play? I was like, okay, I want to play Ant Man. So I put Ant Man
Okay.
and Wasp in the list because it was just weird, right? It was like, okay, I have this weird list of weird Avengers because I have Miss Marvel and I have Gwenpool and I have Squirrel Girl, and I was like, how can I make it weirder, just in game wise? And it's like, okay, I'll take these other 2 transform characters. So now I have 3 transform characters on top of Squirrel Girl and Gwenpool. And when I originally built the list, I was like, okay, well, I wanted to play Miss Marvel, so I put Spider Man in it, right? Miles Morales Spider Man. Um, and then I had Deadpool in the list because I just wanted another Avenger in there. And I was like, that rounds it out. It's weird, and we'll play it that way, right? Well, when I got to the store that night to play it, or the following week or whatever, I showed up to play Darius, one of my friends here locally, and he, I forgot Steve's card at home. I had Steve, but I left his card at home, and I had showed up thinking that I would play that list with Steve, even though it was boring, it would be easy. So I was like, oh well, forget it. I guess I'm just playing. I'm playing uh, Sam instead
Sam.
of Steve, and put Sam on the table, and it ended up being a list built around Gwenpool and Squirrel Girl and Ant Man. I mean, I think it was Miss Marvel too. So it would have been those three, those 5 characters, and it ended up just being really gross. It was really tanky. And then when I took damage, like Sam's leadership, like he finally would daze a character, like Sam's leadership would proc, and it was really really tanky, and I actually like outbrawled outbrawled Criminal Syndicate, which was weird.
Oh
But
wow.
it's a really like reliable numbers list with all the rerolls. And I just did not see that coming.
Yeah,
But
you
yeah,
there are
it
a
was
lot
cool.
of rerolls in that list.
Yeah,
That's an interesting list. It's definitely not one that I've ever seen or even like thought would end up on a table, but I can see the quality. There's some good stuff in there.
I wish that I could take pride and like just say, "Yep, I built it with all those rerolls in mind. That consistency was at the forefront of my brain." But it wasn't. I just built a really dumb list and stumbled into something really cool. So, um,
And it brings Ms. Marvel, which is who you were playing a lot of recently. Is that
yeah,
did she really shine in that list?
she did. Yeah, she's a lot of fun. She she's like a weird finesse piece. But like I said, you can kind of, especially in that list with all the other rerolls and like trying to hit consistency numbers with some of those other characters, you can really pick and choose her spots, like where you want her to be on the table. I found myself putting like deploying her last, just so I can kind of pick where she is, so I can have bigger characters that she's bigger than across from her, like when she changes, so she can get those rerolls.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but
Okay, that makes sense. Here's another
yeah,
question. Uh, Now that there is another transform character, specifically Captain Marvel, do you think that she has a place in that list that you've got?
she could. I haven't put a whole lot of thought into new Carol, just because when that stuff dropped, like all those new characters dropped, I saw Spectacular Spider-Man, and honestly, I just immediately gravitated to him, and all of my thought process went to him. So I haven't really. The only way that I have revisited this list was actually to take Deadpool out, and I put Spectacular Spider-Man in as an unaffiliated character. So
Okay, okay,
yeah.
that that,
I found
that
that
makes
Deadpool
sense.
really wasn't being used, so I took him out and I put Spectacular Spider-Man in. So
Probably the right call.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And here's another question. You said that you were working on a new podcast project.
I
That is
am.
about. Do you want to plug that right now?
Yeah, I will a little bit. It's not out yet. We're planning to record sometime next week is our first episode, and it's actually revolved around Spider-Man comics. It's going to be called "Speaking of Spider-Verses," one of my one of my local friends here, Chris Bird, and I are going to start it, and it's a Chris is a lifelong Spider-Man fan. He reads the entire run of Amazing Spider-Man once per year. So he's really an encyclopedia of knowledge. Um, so I'm really excited to kick that off with him. I also enjoy Spider Man. My um, love of Spider Man is just on different levels from Chris. Just I as a kid loved Spider Man. Then like many of us in the 2000s really became oversaturated with Spider Man. Really in the 2010s. Became oversaturated with Spider-Man, and it really soured me for a little while. Now I'm coming back into my love of Spider-Man, really through Miles, but I like Pete too. Um, anyway, but that's all for that podcast. But that's what it'll be about. We're breaking down. If you've ever heard of the X-Men podcast Cerebro, where it's going to be similar to that. It's inspired by that, but not an exact copy. So we're going to be reviewing a character every episode and kind of digging deep into their core of literary analysis and what makes that character and things like that. So it's really going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. And we're kicking things off, like I said, going to record sometime next week, and then hopefully it'll be up within a couple weeks after that. So I'd say when you're listening to this, within a month, you will be able to find. Speaking of Spider Verses in your ears, so
Well, I've got something new that I've got to keep an eye out for. And
well, I
also,
will make sure to send you that link as soon as it's up.
please do. I really like the name. Speaking of Spider Verses, that's a good name
I
for a
wish that
podcast.
I could. I really wish I could take credit for that too. I cannot. That was Chris's idea. I was coming up with. I wanted to do some sort of play on Spider Verses, but and I was on alliteration, but I can't. I don't even remember what terrible ideas I came up with because Chris sent that one, and it was so good that I missed it. So like I was driving down the road, and my fiance was in the car with me, and Chris said, "Speaking of Spider Verses, dot dot dot." So I was like waiting for the follow up message, and I'm like, what's he sending next? Is it going to be like a picture of something or whatever? And Ashley, my fiance, was like, "No, you dummy! Like that's the name of the podcast." Like it's like, oh, that's perfect. So anyway, I wish that I could take credit for it. Chris did that, but it's
Yeah,
gonna be a good one. I'm excited.
yeah,
It's
it's
at
a
least
good
gonna be
name.
fun. I don't know if it'll be good. It'll at least be fun. So.
Well, I will listen to it for sure. I do not know a whole lot about comic books, so this might be a very useful resource for me learning about Spider-Man stuff.
Well, that's the goal. We want to provide a. It's intimidating to get into comics, right? Because there's so much content, and especially Marvel. Like, I like that they don't reset things every so often like DC does, but since they don't do that, it can be very intimidating. Like, where do I start? What if I don't want to start in the 60s and stuff like that? So we're hoping to bridge some of that gap and just make it less intimidating for people to find their love in Marvel Comics.
Yeah, that is very very true. It is very daunting. Well, that I'm glad that that is happening. It sounds like you've been going through quite a bit this past couple. You've been very busy. Um, so do you folks want to talk about any games that you've played recently? How about
I've been talking. Oh no, go ahead, Fred. I'm
Oh
sorry.
no, sorry. I was about to have Brad start us off because Brad has barely spoken this episode. I
I
want to
was
let him
going to
have
say
some.
the same thing, so that works. We're on the same wavelength.
Okay. Hey Brad, talk to us about some of the games that you've played recently.
Well, we didn't have a tournament yesterday.
Yeah. That's unfortunate, but it is circumstances being what they were I understand why we didn't.
But I did play a game with Michael on Thursday. He played Hydra, and he used none of the new characters, but he used a couple of the new tactics cards. He used the Winter Soldier one. That might be it. But he played Strucker, Winter Soldier, uh, Fury Senior. Who else was in his list? Those were the models that I remember because the double got your back was annoying.
Yeah. It's
Zemo,
very effective.
Zemo was definitely in there, and he had at least one more. I played Brotherhood again, like I did you, Fred, and we were at the same point level. And I played Magneto, Juggernaut, Rogue, Pyro. Is Demons Downtown and Hammers. And I got up pretty quickly on points. And then he killed Juggernaut and then Magneto. And then I lost the game.
Oh, okay. I mean, when you lose those two pieces,
Yeah.
that's 11 points out of your list.
Yeah.
So, well, it sounds like Michael got the upper hand. Good for him. I know he hasn't had a whole lot of practice recently, but
No.
yeah.
I think he's going
Uh,
to the LVO qualifier in Pittsburgh. And then I also plan on going to that. And then we're both going to Second Wind in Chicago. So he's trying to get practice in before those two events.
nice. I didn't know that you were planning to go
To what?
to Chicago to second win.
Oh, yeah.
Although
I
you,
bought a
you went
ticket.
last year, so okay.
No, I did not go last year, if
Oh,
you
you didn't go. Oh
remember.
no, you didn't. You for a very good reason.
Yeah, but I went the year before.
Right.
Justy, was that the one you went to 2 years ago?
Yeah, that's the one I went to. It was so fun.
Yeah,
So much fun.
it's such a good event. Last year, Jared, Michael, and I were gonna go, and then I ruined it for everyone, and we didn't go.
Well, it wasn't anything you could control.
That's true.
So, how about you, Justy? Have you had any games that you've played recently?
I
I mean,
actually
you
got to play. Oh no, go ahead.
you did mention that you had played a game recently, but uh, go ahead.
So I did get to play on Wednesday night. We're recording this on a Sunday, not to pull back the curtain. Sorry to spoil that for your listeners, but so a few days ago, I did get to play a game, and I've been itching to try out new Spectacular Spider-Man. And I don't get to play a whole lot of Web Warriors in general. I mentioned that Darius is a local here. He's my most common opponent. Darius plays a lot of Web Warriors, so it's because of that. it would be very boring for both of us to play Web Warriors every week. So I've kind of stayed away from them. He's also a Spider Foes player, and he was very excited to try out new Doc Ock. So I took that as an opportunity for him to try out Doc Ock and me to try out Spectacular Spider-Man. And so he played. Now, for the purposes of this game, we treated Spectacular Spider-Man as if he were in Web Warriors. I know we don't technically know if he's going to be, but we went ahead and made that assumption and played him as if he were a Web Warrior. So he got benefits of all webbed up and stuff like that.
Oh boy, if he's not in Web Warriors, I mean, he's in Web Warriors. Let's just say
exactly.
it.
I figured it was a safe assumption.
Yeah.
I just needed to throw that caveat out here before I started talking about the game. So we get there and we pull out our lists, whatever, and we ended up playing 16 Threat, and it was Gamma Wave and Paranoia, which ended up being a very advantageous map for him. So I got down on attrition early. Well, let me talk about the characters I played. I played Miles, Gwen, Spectacular Spider-Man, Black Cat, and Venom. And he played Doc Ock as the new Doc Ock leader. He played Rhino, Venom, and Carnage.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, he and I have also been like trying to find ways to make Carnage work recently because it's a character we both enjoy. So we're trying to find ways to play him. So he wanted to try him with new Doc Ock to see if it made a difference. So he gets up big on attrition early. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. Spectacular Spider-Man bit the bullet early-ish, but he did tank many activations, so it paid off for me. But I did get down on attrition early, but I was able to come back and make it an interesting game. I almost had it. It came down to my Venom failed me at the end, but I was in it at the end. Ended up losing 19-15, but the game really was a 1 or 2 point game. It just kind of swung the other way at the very end. So it was a very good game. We got to see new Doc Ock and new Spider-Man, and it was a good time.
Yeah, any game where the losing side gets to 15 points is a really close game. That's a good game.
It was a very, very good game. He and I we've been in a habit recently where one of the two of us will bulldoze the other one, so it was neat to see such a close game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have not had any games recently since the last record, at least, and so I don't have anything to add to this conversation. But let's move on to any news and announcements. I don't think that they've had anything new come out. I think they spent all of their new news and stuff on this big announcement of the new core box.
When's Mini Stravaganza?
Sorry, what?
When's Mini Stravaganza? It's just like a couple weeks away, isn't it? Isn't it in September?
I believe you're right.
Yeah,
I think it is.
September.
So they're saving up for that.
Yeah, I doubt we get any news before then.
Yeah, you're probably correct. Do you have any Cerebro or Point Break news there, Brad?
Just a little. I fixed an error on the server side today that may have kept people from logging in. So if you had trouble logging in out there, that should be fixed. The database switched over to Swedish randomly.
Oh boy.
And things weren't working. So, and I looked it up, and that's just an error that sometimes happens because the company was Swedish.
Okay, interesting.
I
think they
think
send out an update or something, and it just changes everything.
Or my server rebooted or something, and it just messed up. But that should be fixed now. And I have updates coming, but
okay,
nothing done yet.
Well, I think that's everything that we need to talk about before we go to our particular target character. So I'll start us off here. We're going to look at Spectacular Spider-Man, otherwise known as Peter Parker. His defenses are 3 physical, 3 energy, and 3 mystic. He has 5 stamina on both sides of his card. He is 3 points, which is something that a lot of Spider-Man fans have been clamoring for. He is size
We had a
2.
3-point Spider-Man.
Yeah, I mean, you're correct. We did, and he's really good.
Yes,
We
he
gave him
is.
I think we gave him either an A plus or an S. We were real up on him. Well, but this Spider-Man is size 2 and movement speed medium. And Brad, why don't you go over his attack suite?
They're all physical attacks. The first one is Swinging Strike, range 3, 5 dice. Uh, Gain 1 power. Wild Hit, take an advance. Yeah, just an advance. It's not even towards the character you attacked. Impact Webbing, range 4, 4 dice, 0 cost. Gain a power. Wild Push, size 2 or less, before damage is dealt. Away short. Web Head Wallop, range 2, 7 dice, cost 4. And I believe this is the same power that's on Amazing Spider-Man. Wild Hit Catch. After this attack is resolved, you may choose an interactive terrain feature of size 2 or less within range 3 of this character and destroy it. The target character suffers a collision as if the terrain feature had collided with it.
All right. And Justy, why don't you go over the rest of the card?
Oh yeah, that sounds great. So, he has the first superpower is a um, it's called Web Slinger. You can place his character within 3 of its current position. The superpower can only be used once per turn, and it costs 2. Um, the next superpower costs 3. It's called Proportionate Strength of a Spider. Choose an enemy character of size 3 or less and within 3 and throw it short. This superpower can be used only once per turn. Then he has 2 innate superpowers. One is Spider Sense. When this character is defending against a physical or energy attack or making a dodge roll, it may reroll up to 2 of its defense or dodge dice. And the other innate superpower is Wall Crawler.
All right. So that is our friend here, Spectacular Spider-Man. The first thing that I want to mention is that in the core box, this is the only, I guess, I'm gonna call him Heroes side 3 threat character. Is that? I'm pretty sure that's
Yes,
correct.
that's correct. There's only 2 total.
Right. It's him and Crossbones.
Uh-huh.
And what are your Justy, you have some experience on the table with this guy. Why don't you talk about him? What was your experience?
Yeah, so my experience, I didn't get to attack with him more than just one activation, but he did take up multiple um, activations to days, and then he was a high priority character once he flipped for my opponent to the other side. So for a 3 threat character to eat up what was effectively 3 activations, 3 full activations to get him off the table, was just very impressive. And that's now, like I said, I was playing him in Web Warriors, so he had his Spider Sense rerolls and his Web Warrior reroll. But just the fact of having that same survivability effectively as the 4 threat Spider-Man in the 3 threat deal was just awesome. I really enjoy him. I think that he is what Spider-Man should be. Just because of that, he's 3 threat and has the spider senses. I don't ask for a lot, but that seems to be the kicker. His when I did attack, I got to use the swinging strike elusive trigger, and that was neat. For the scenario I was playing, I needed him to contest an objective, so I was able to move him onto an objective point with that, which was just nice. Spider-Man is that way, right? He moves around, he swings around. It just felt very thematic.
Oh yeah. Can I? All right. So I want to talk about uh him having a size 3 character throw on his card for a 3 cost character. Uh, very useful. Like it is exception, and he has the ability on his spender to. It is a little bit of a tough trigger, which is a wild hit, but you can destroy and throw a size 2 terrain feature at your opponent, at whomever you're hitting with this attack. I I really like this character. I've never I didn't put him on the table, so I don't know what he feels like, but I like everything he's bringing to the table. I think that he seems very much in the Miles Morales vein, where it's all positives. Even though he's 3 threat, he's just good at everything as a 3 threat.
Absolutely. I mean, you look down his card, you think about the things that make a character good, right? He has extra movement between web slinger and his elusive trigger and his swinging strike. He has extra movement, right? He can push a character with his impact webbing. Um, he can, like you said, throw enemy characters. So that can be more damage. That can be that can be displacement, either one or both, right? So it's just he has a lot of flexibility, which is really what you want to look. I think when I look at 3 threat characters, um, what differentiates something from the pack, it's versatility, and he is very versatile.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Now, one thing that I do want to think, I don't think this was a problem in your game because it seemed like he was taking a lot of attention. He was getting hit a lot. But I think that if the opponent ignores him, he might end up a little power starved because he does not have a builder. He only
So
has
I
gainers.
think I could see that potential. I think that the fact that his both of his quote unquote builders are just gains 1 power, I think in this case actually helps him. Because that being a range 4 impact webbing, the fact that he's gaining power just by doing it, um, I think will actually help him more than it hurts him, especially as a web warrior where you can feel kind of power starved. I think it's important just to get that power and not have to get as much as you dealt damage wise, right? You don't have to pray for that dice spike. It's pretty reliable. So in an activation, you can double attack and web slinger no matter what.
That's true. You're right. And I do like gainers for that because it just feels awful when you're going attacking with a builder and you're like, I just need 1 power out of this and I'll be okay. And then you whiff the dice, and that
Yeah.
happens all the time.
Oh, exactly. And if you do want to deal big damage, right, and you don't have any power before you start your turn, you get your 1 for the turn. You can double swinging strike and still get to throw the character for
Yeah,
your power
yeah,
from the turn and then the 2 from that. So.
you're right. You're right. I mean, all right, Brad. We've been talking a lot. What is your takeaway here? Just looking at the card.
Okay, well, I was going to talk about how web warriors have a problem where they never have enough power, and the gainers actually help him not be in as much trouble as the other ones. But you guys kind of covered that.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was also going to talk about how web slinger is really, really good. I think you guys
Yeah,
got
it
that
is.
covered too. He's good. I mean,
I mean, so you're gonna bring if you're playing Web Warriors, you're gonna play this guy, Miles Morales, and Spider Gwen. That's gonna be a 9-point core to that list that you then add stuff onto,
I
right?
think you can honestly like also put Black Cat in there, and that's your 12 points that you start every list with.
Yeah, you're right. Black Cat would be a great addition to that list. Oh,
I
oh my gosh.
I think also you play Venom a lot.
Yeah.
And Venom
Yeah.
might be in place of one of those characters. Well, not Miles, but
Yeah.
or he could just be on top of that because that's a good 16 points if you're playing 16.
Well, that's the
Mm-hmm.
16 I played the other day, and it was very good.
Yeah.
I think that, like you said, I think that those 5 characters effectively are your core. You may take one out here and there,
Yeah.
depending on what the scenario is, but I do think that those 5 characters make just a ridiculously good and flexible core.
It is. There was a period of time in the meta of this game where Web Warriors were just dominating every game, and part of that is that their particular game style is very scenario focused, which is just how you win the game. You got to do that to win the game, and this is going to help them do that. Here's another question: do you feel like this is another nail in the coffin for Amazing Spider-Man?
I've actually put a lot of thought into that. I think that it makes it very hard to put him on the table. Well, more hard than it was. Not just because, they're both Peter Parker, but because it's another character to put in that Web Warrior list that you can't play with Amazing Spider-Man.
Right.
So it makes it harder to build that 2-leader list.
Yeah. Can here's a rules question. Can he even be in the roster that you're in a tournament? Can they even be in the same roster?
Yes.
I don't know. They can. Okay,
Yeah,
they
they
just can't
can't
be on
be
the
in
table at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Until we get a Spider-Verse affiliation where the part of the leadership of a new Peter is that you can take any Peter Parker in that list.
Honestly, that's really what I'm hoping for. I hope it's not even like we don't even need a fourth Peter yet. I just hope they give us like an extra card, like how they put out the Emma card. Maybe
Oh
they just
yeah.
slide it in something where it's like, here's an affiliation. You can play Spider Verse affiliation, and as long as you're on that list, then you can be in there regardless of your alter ego.
Although
That
I hope if it is a leadership on a card that it's not on a Peter Parker because it's just a character I'd rather have it on.
You got to tell
who's
me
that?
who.
Spider UK, the leader of the Spider Verse team.
Spider
fair.
UK? I don't know this character.
Jason, back me
Okay.
up. I mean, Justy, back me up. Spider UK, great.
He is great. He is like Brad said, he is the leader of the Spider Verse team or the Web Warriors or whatever you want to call them in the comics. He's the guy. So it would make a lot of sense to bring him in, and he is a Braddock too, who is
Yes.
so that's close to Brad and
It,
I's heart.
is he a Brian or does he have a different first name?
I think he has a different first
Yeah,
name.
I can't remember what it is.
I
Fred, he
Google
is
can tell me really fast.
yeah. Fred, he is not only a Spider-Man, he is also a Captain Britain.
Oh wow. He's double dipping on heroes.
Yeah.
He is William Braddock, so he is Billy
Okay.
Braddock.
Okay. He'll come boxed in this game. He'll come boxed with Peter Porker.
I bet
hope so.
he goes by Billy.
Oh yeah,
Billy
he goes by
Braddock.
Billy. It is Billy Braddock.
Yeah.
All right. So
that's a very Peter Parker-ish name.
Yeah.
We need to give this Peter Parker a letter grade. I think that I'm gonna go first. I'm real up on him. I think that he's a solid A. I think it's a real solid A. And if you really want to, someone could talk me into giving him an A plus. Although I think I'm gonna stick with an A. Justy, what is your take? What is your letter grade for this Peter Parker?
I'm going to go cautious with an A. I could see A plus, like I could see A plus plus coming from this character. But I am just so blown away by the theme. They got the theme perfect. Um, they got the power level of the character perfect. It doesn't seem like he's overpowered, but it seems like he is solid. I think that we're going to see this Spider-Man in a lot of lists just because almost everyone loves Spider-Man. I
Yeah.
think that, and he's good, and he's good. It's not like a three-threat character that you came out that, like, let's say you're a big Crossbones fan, and you've been bummed for the last 4 years while playing Crossbones, right? It's not the same thing with the Spider-Man. You're not going to get punished for playing the Spider-Man. So I'm very excited for him. I think that an A is like I'm being cautious so my hype doesn't like overwhelm me. So I'm gonna say an A, but I'm pretty sold on that A.
Yep, yep. How about you, Brad? What are you gonna give her? Give him. I just misgendered Spider-Man.
So I don't think he's going to be splashed that much outside of his affiliations. And I usually reserve A for people who I think will be splashed a lot outside of affiliation. So I'm going B plus. I
Can
think he's.
I push back on what you said?
You can.
Uh, if he's not Avengers affiliated, he's gonna be splashed all the time in core box games.
Oh my god, Fred.
He has a point.
That doesn't
Can I
count.
just? Can I also say that with the new Captain America leadership, now it's not as good as the old Captain America leadership. I
It's
will
really
forward
good for
that.
this Peter Parker.
It's really good for this Peter Parker.
Mm-hmm.
Like it'll make those wilds much easier to get.
I think he's going to be Avengers affiliated.
Yeah.
I think so too, because the other one wasn't. I think that they'll take that angle with this one.
I think this is
He
a very good. Boy,
he
they really came correct with this core box. Like
he
they
may also be Shield affiliated, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's a
Maybe.
solid chance too.
I don't think he had any chance except for Shield being in the core box, and then that makes it likely.
Yeah.
Likelier.
Yeah. I agree with that.
well, all right. Brad, this feels weird because we have someone who's going to have a comic book podcast about Spider-Man. You know what? Brad, do you want to talk about any comic books that he's been in? I don't want to put Justy on the spot. I was about to ask him if he has any.
Fred, I completely forgot. I don't have anything.
Hey, Justy, do you have any comic book recommendations for Spider-Man?
Oh man. Of course I do. No, so Brad and I actually Brad texted me about 10 minutes before we started to record and he said, "Oh snap, I forgot about this. Do you have comic book recommendations?" I said, "Of course I do." So, I have two. I have two. I have an old recommendation and a newer recommendation for everyone. The first recommendation is I'm actually going to recommend the first 15 issues of Amazing Spider-Man from the 60s. So the first 15 issues and the first annual. This gives you the baseline, like this is intro to Peter Parker. This is not just the origin story, but an origin for the entire Sinister Six. You get to see Green Goblin for the first time, which is really goofy. He rides a broomstick. At first, he doesn't have the Goblin glider. Things like that. It's really goofy and fun, but it's also like personally, I struggle to read '60s comics. Sometimes I can feel like they're wordy or campy or whatever, and honestly, Spider-Man is a little campy and a little weird, but only in the most like Spider-Man nostalgic ways. It's all in the ways that you expect. So for whatever reason, it's a little more acceptable and a little easier to read. So I highly recommend anyone that is just a fan of Peter Parker and like just wants classic Peter trying to take pictures of himself to give to J. Jonah Jameson. Like it gives all of that. Like you get introduced to that out the gates. It's just awesome. You don't even need like Amazing Fantasy 15 is great to read just so you get the technical origin of Spider-Man, but it's really those first 15 issues really are who Spider-Man is and what he does and like I said, you also if you read those first 15 issues, you want to read the annual because that's the story of the first team up of the Sinister Six. It's also really goofy. He fights them one at a time and it's kind of funny. But they
Ye-
team up to face him one at a time.
Okay, I think that with Spider-Man, I'm more willing to accept a lot of campiness, a lot
Yeah.
of like I mean, there's just something about the character that that's acceptable. That's much more acceptable.
I mean, he's always been the science geek, right? So like some of that cringy 60s stuff, you can just see as part of his personality traits. And it's not the same as reading 60s comic books. I can't really explain it without you also experiencing it, but it's I don't know, it's just interesting. It's not like reading other 60s comics, and I really enjoy it.
All right then. Uh, well, we don't have Brandon. I don't think he's going to be showing up this episode, which is unfortunate. But do either of you have an idea of a list that he wouldn't be affiliated in where you think he might shine?
Well, can we rewind real quick because I did
Oh,
say I had two comic book
you did
recommendations.
say you have two. Oh my goodness. I
I don't
apologize.
want to. Oh no, it's okay. I just don't want the listeners to be disappointed when they're like, "Did that get cut out? What the heck?" The other one is the Spider Verse storyline from I think it was 2014. Yeah, that sounds about right. But it is the original Spider Verse storyline. That's where you get the team up of lots of different Spider Mans, and they converge the timelines, and it really is the inspiration for the Spider Verse movies that people like so much. I don't want to say a whole lot more than that, other than if you want a modern Spider-Man read, you can get into it without having too much background of other things. The background of other things just enhances your enjoyment of it. So
Okay. The I gotta say that if that line of comics created the Spider-Verse movies, uh it's a highly successful comic book.
yeah, it's very good. Those movies are phenomenal. So.
They truly are. They truly are. Well, now back to what I was saying earlier before I cut you off. Uh, do any of you have an idea for an affiliation where you think this Spider-Man would work really well? Because I do, if neither of you have anything.
I think you should go. I talked about how I felt about him at the beginning in my Avengers list, how I was going to sub out Deadpool for him, and he may end up being Avengers affiliated anyway. So I think that you should run with it.
Okay. Uh, I think that he would work really well under Kingpin Criminal Syndicate, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. I think that
All right,
you would.
Brandon.
Yeah,
That's what
I'm
I
pulling a
was thinking.
Brandon here. I'm pulling a Brandon. One, because everything works well under Kingpin Criminal Syndicate, but he's a three-pointer who can get anywhere on the board he wants to really easily with the web swing. So my thought is on, say, a Mutant Madmen scenario, which you're already doing really well on. You could activate him last and use him to go and grab your opponent's points on round. I don't think you could do it on round one. You might be able to. It's possible, but it's unlikely. But you could do it any other round. You would just go to wherever your opponent has only one person. Use him as your mobile bothering the opponent tool. That's my thought. That's my thought.
I think that's great. I have no no rebuttal other than I hope Darius doesn't listen to this and incorporate that.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm sure that there are better options in Criminal Syndicate, but I think that that could be a very annoying thing to be up against. All right. I guess is there anything else that you guys want to talk about before I do the last thing? I don't. I think we're winding down the episode. So for my non sequitur recommendation, I'm going to talk about a game that I brought up wanting to recommend last week, and that is the game Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate 3 specifically. So in the video game world, everyone is talking about this game, largely because it's an obvious masterpiece. It's a obvious, incredible game, and it is maybe It is in the Zelda category for the amount of game you get for the purchase price of one video game. It's hundreds of hours of very entertaining, very good story and gameplay. So everyone go play Baldur's Gate 3, and if you've got the time to devote to it, you will certainly have a great time. And that's it. That's all I've got. Justy, it was really great having you on this episode, man. I've enjoyed this a lot. I've enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you guys so much for having me on. It's been a blast. It's been cool to catch up with you guys, and it was just great to chat about Spider-Man and really give him his flowers. I'm sure that if Brandon was on here, he'd have been salty and gave him like a C or something. But I'm glad that we didn't do that.
I don't know how he could. I don't know how he could. Although my judgment is not very good, so we'll see. But he's too good to give a C. There's no way.
I just had to get a Brandon jab in there since he's not here to defend himself, and he seems like he's continuously dodging me. So just had to get that subtle jab.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. That was our episode today. Everyone go out there and have some fun. And I'll see you later.